Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts. I don't mean to make your head spin, but it's 8:30 my time because I actually came back for like 3 days for a wedding to Toronto, and then I'll be heading back to the 6:30 p.m. for the rest of the summer. But I just want to say hi to everybody. We're so glad you're here with us, and we're here with Ben Reiter, who we're going to get so deep into his palmarès when Sensei gives him the introduction. But for now, I want to jump right into a first question with him. Ben, talk to us about Beat the Streets. You're wearing the shirt, and I know that this is something that's near and dear to you, and I feel like it's the perfect place to start and then break open some ideas from there.
Yeah, thank you. That's appreciate. Well, just appreciate being here with all of you and the opportunity, and just love I wouldn't be, just like many of us here on this call, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be the man that I am today without my journey through combat sports. I started in wrestling, then I was a professional MMA fighter for all throughout my 20s for 10 years or so. And the life lessons that are packed in the sport take with me every day. I wouldn't be the leader that I am, the father, the husband that I am without all of those life lessons and the community that comes with it. I always say, wherever you find a mat, you find a home. And that's been true anywhere in the world, which is pretty amazing. There's not many experiences that could say that, where it's such a uniting force. And Beat the Streets, we're a nonprofit. There's currently 10 accredited Beat the Streets organizations across the country, and we're reaching 10,000 youth every year. And we use the sport of wrestling and the power of a caring coach in your corner, the power of a community behind you, a support network, to positively alter life's trajectory for the youth that we serve. We're in some of the most under-resourced neighborhoods in the country, and it's making a big difference. We're seeing that our youth are, when we think wrestling's the vehicle, but the mission is really to use that experience as a way to help our youth get on a positive path in life, gain opportunities, learn how to set goals and work towards those goals, learn how to bounce back from failures, navigate challenges, navigate adversity, all of those, humility, all of the things that I feel like most of the people on this call have learned through their journey. And we do that in the way. We also do a ton of stuff off the mat as far as post-secondary guidance, get a mentor, help with homework, help with applying to colleges or trade schools or whatever's next in that next part of their chapters in life. And it's just an honor to be a part of it, really close to my heart. I feel like I've met so many inspirational youth coming through this organization, and there's a really big need out there. There's a lot of youth that we're not reaching yet. It's amazing how far we've come, reaching 10,000 youth across the country. But there's a big need out there, and we want to keep growing this and building this so that one day we could be reaching 100,000 youth. And I think that there's going to be a day where we're reaching 1 million youth across the entire world. That's the trajectory we're on. So just an exciting movement to be a part of, and really, yeah, grateful. Thank you for allowing me to share that. This is really close.
Before we move past that, anybody stand out for you? You got anybody from Beat the Streets that you want to give a shout out to, that it's like, this person started here, they worked through your program, now they're in university? Like, you got any names? I'd love to hear some names of people.
Well, there's so many, which makes it a tough question, because there's so many of our youth that I'm just so proud of. One of the things that, I was at someone that I personally mentored a bit when I was first starting with Beat the Streets Philadelphia, just graduated college and is on an amazing path. And I know that this person that we would talk on every week or every other week. I feel like he'd be coming in saying there's another shooting on the block. There was all sorts of challenges, and he overcame that, and has been a leader, and has been now coaching and helping other kids come through it as well. So that's something overall that I just see. I usually like to ask permission of our youth first to see if they want to, maybe they want to join this podcast, but before saying names. But I'm thinking of that person just because I was just at their college graduation, and that was a really special moment. We've seen youth where they're just facing some really unfair challenges in life, and we've seen youth having to deal with being in and out of homelessness, having the water cut off, having the influence of just drugs on the corner every day, shootings on the block, all sorts of things that, you know, that are tough societal challenges. It's really difficult to break out of that. But our youth are overcomers, they're fighters, and embracing that mindset gives them the tools and support to go on and overcome some of just the really inequitable and unfair challenges that they can be facing, and it gives them a shot. The one things as far as just across the country, the culture that we're seeing, this full circle culture building, where now we have youth that have come through the program and giving back as coaches and mentors. And that makes me really proud to see that movement building, because I think our youth that have come through the program are going to be even more impactful for that next generation.
I just slammed a link up there, Ben, that Robert had sent to me for people who want more information on that. And I don't know how the Sets of Legacy and Sets of Swino and Sets of Benson feel about it, but it might be really cool to just do an episode with you and a couple of people who wanted to come on and we just talk about like what their experiences are and just use that as a vehicle to try and help you reach your 1 million people that you want to reach. Let's work together to get that done.
That sounds great, because it takes an army of supporters and leaders, and it takes a lot of people to make this work happen. You know, it takes impactful coaches on the ground level doing this work every day, being that caring coach in their corner. And it takes donors, it takes board members, it takes executive directors and program directors. It's a whole big movement and operation. And without people that are really driven and passionate and it's, you know, we can't keep growing, but we want to keep growing. So it takes people. That's the biggest thing. People, resources, and we could keep growing this movement.
Yeah, love that. So let's break into this a little bit. You know, you said so many things, and I know the Sensei Dauphin and I specifically, but all of us pay really close attention, like transforms the lives of children through wrestling, life lessons, community. But you said something a couple times, caring coach in your corner. Talk about that idea, because I get goosebumps when I hear that phrase. It feels like that's the cornerstone of this, and it feels really special. Talk to us about what caring coach in your corner means.
Yeah, you know, I always say that the mission of Beat the Streets and the impact has existed long before we've existed as an organization. It's about that caring coach in your corner. They're the ones that are changing that relationship, someone that's going to come alongside you, help you navigate through these challenges, help you learn the life lessons that are packed in the sport, right? Because when we think about wrestling as the vehicle, I mean, wrestling is a big metaphor for life. Everybody's wrestling through something. I hear people use that word that have never stepped on the mat in a day in their life, but they say, I'm wrestling through a certain challenge, through a certain issue. So the mindset that you build through and I believe this to be true just throughout my whole journey in combat sports, the mindset that you build through that, you take it to every area in life. And having that caring coach in your corner and someone that could show different paths to success beyond the mat, and someone that then being a part of this larger community that wants to see you thrive, that's the secret sauce of why what we're doing is working. And that's been happening long before Beat the Streets. But Beat the Streets, we built an organization around that, and we've built a way to scale that and bring this to cities across the country and eventually across the world. And that's what we want to do.
That's awesome. And you know, one thing I want to throw out. Oh, by the way, we also put up beatthestreets.org. That's up in the chat box. Awesome. One of the things I want to talk about, you know, a lot of people are drawn to martial arts, especially like a Japanese, like a, you know, that has a mythology around it, actually want the harsh coach. Like a lot of people are drawn by the idea that you're going to get, you know, beaten like Pai Mei and Kill Bill. Like, if you don't have that, you're missing some of the experience.
Well, you could be tough and still care.
Let's talk about that. Both. And we're going to break this open, because this is really key, I think. How do you give the person that drive, that ability to go beyond what they know they can do, but also be caring in a way that doesn't coddle?
Yeah. You know what? It's that careful balance where you're presenting, you're knowing the right what's that next step, right? You climb a mountain one step at a time, right? And as people stick with a discipline for long enough, before you know it, years, if you're consistent over an extended period of time, before you know it, you've climbed a mountain and you're farther along that you might have ever believed you'd get, right? And that's part of the journey. So I think a caring coach knows that right next step as far as how do we stretch? How do you stretch someone? You don't let them fall down the mountain, you stretch them to get to that next step, and you continue to stretch them again and again and again. And you do that through the challenges and pressure to go beyond our comfort zones, right? You got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to have that bravery to do that, to take that step, and a coach, but for our youth, I mean, knowing that they're not doing it alone, right? You got someone there with you. You got your coach, you got your team, and that's how growth happens. That's how growth happens, and that's what we see in our organization, and what you've all seen in your journeys as well.
Right on. So I'm going to go Sensei Suino, Sensei Dauphin, then Hanshi Legacy, but I want to talk about this idea. Sensei Suino, you spent the time in Japan. You probably met some pretty harsh old masters. What is that balance between that mythological, almost abusive teacher and a caring coach? And where does the blend happen best?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true. A coach can be really demanding. You can train really hard. It doesn't mean they don't care. And sometimes it means that they care more.
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I've never met an abusive coach or sensei, but some have cared more than others. Some have pushed me more than others. I will say this, no matter how hard I've trained, whether it be judo or whatever other martial art, whenever I go watch like a wrestling club, I cannot believe how hard wrestlers train. Even 8-year-old wrestlers, man, they put most of the rest of the martial arts world to shame. Those guys are just brutal. And that's why they're so tough. And that's why also such a high percentage of successful UFC fighters, right, have a wrestling background.
Right on.
It's something we're proud of in the sport. It's like, embrace that grit. Embrace the grit is it's part of the, so it helps people grow and stretch themselves and meet new challenges when it's just part of the whole culture too. You're not alone in that. It's what you do as a wrestler. You go hard and you learn that along the way.
Sensei Dauphin, hardcore old school, 5 fingers of death teachers versus caring coaches. Where does it live?
I don't know these people personally, but through my research and my reading, Ben, you and I are both history majors. We both went to university for history. So Matsumoro is known to be a very strict and extreme type of a martial arts teacher. I think because he was a military person. Hitoshi Hatsune was known to be a very tough and strict instructor. They produce great students. I'm sure that's through the construct of being tough and strict. The things I've learned since then from having tough, strict instructors, like if you don't know, Sensei Legacy's pretty strict. He runs a tight ship and he's pretty tough. Like when I say pretty tough, he's really fucking tough. Okay. So, and the one thing that I learned is that he knew a lot of things about me that I didn't know about myself. And he knew them before I knew them about myself. And I was lucky enough to come into a dojo where a person was going to be tough and strict, but they knew things about me that I didn't know about myself, and they were going to get the best out of me. They're gonna push me. And when I fell down, sometimes Sensei Legacy said, get up off your feet, stand up and start fighting again. And then sometimes he came over and lifted me off of the ground and said, it's okay, Randy, like you're going to be okay. Get back on your. So sometimes tough, stand up, fight. Other times, I'm going to lift you up and I'm going to help you. And the final thing I want to say, Sean, is one thing when you have a tough, strict instructor, which I don't want to say that Sensei Suino isn't, because he is. I just got called to task like a couple of weeks ago. I was there and he just made it really clear, like this, and this, they're written on the board. For your swordsmanship to reach the next level, there was no wishy-washy. You must do these things or you will not reach that level. The closer you get to your teacher and the more they know you and the more you know them, the more direct and tough they get with you, because they
Uh-huh.
can, because you have a loving, caring relationship where they know they can say, that was the worst inside middle block I've ever seen you do. Right?
Yeah. You
They
got the
can
trust
say
built
that
up.
to you, and then you're still gonna love each other. and
Just
you're
as
gonna-
an example.
Yeah. But the point is you can be both at the same time, right?
And you always are. both of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hanshi Legacy, where do you want to go with this idea of the strict, classical, almost too hard teacher versus a caring coach?
Well, in a way, they can be both the same. Like you can meld it in there. You just have to be sort of tough by showing it, by example. That way, when it all works, keeps everyone in line. You yourself obey the rules. You lead the way in being a student. I think that you don't put yourself above them, even though you're a strict teacher. You're another human being, still learning martial arts. I think that they fall in line with you, not as much as behind you. And I find that
Yeah.
a good instructor is strict, but also has a bit of compassion and understanding of the beginning of his martial arts career, what he really wasn't before the martial arts. If I messed that up, I meant that he didn't know much either, and he had to stand in line and do it all. And I also had a strict instructor.
Yeah.
We're at that time where we should do intros, but because we're talking about Beat the Streets and because we're deep into this, I do want to add one more question for you, Ben. And that question is, transforms the lives of children through wrestling. How is wrestling, or we'll call it martial arts, uniquely capable of connecting with the type of people who are in tough situations? Like there's not a lot of people who can walk into a corner gang, or a place where there's shootings, or a place where somebody doesn't respect authority because the world never does for them, and go, hey, and in a short period of time, get that person's respect or that community's respect. So how is wrestling and martial arts uniquely qualified? I'm assuming you think it is to do that.
That's a great question and point, because I mean our Beat the Streets is part of this larger sport. It's called sports-based youth development sector, right? And the whole point is exactly what it sounds like, right? Using sports as a vehicle to learn and grow, and what I've seen, and also just the whole youth development sector, which is bigger, right? And I'm all for anytime a kid gets passionate about something and is setting goals and all in, there's a lot of growth that happens there. And so I believe opportunity and options are great, right? There should be lots of programs and provide options, especially considering that our whole society is moving more towards the pay to play model. So there's more private clubs, and you need a lot more money to participate in sports than you used to. A lot of the local rec leagues and schools are cutting programs. And so I'm a supporter of it all, but I agree with your statement of that we're uniquely positioned to reach some of the toughest to reach youth, because they're looking for something. They're identifying with that fighter, overcomer mindset. And this is an arena to where that's okay. And you can grow that, and you can develop those instincts, and you learn how to, you learn the humility that comes with it, right? Because even world champions, I know every world champion that I've ever met has been beaten up in the gym. Everybody's learned that lesson, right? So you learn humility along the way. You learn, but you learn confidence and humility at the same time, right? You learn the healthy balance there. You learn all these things that it's an arena where it's okay to have that roughness, that toughness, that overcomer fighter mindset. And a great coach could kind of shape that and turn that into something really, really positive. So that is, where it could in another pathway could turn into something negative, right? But but in combat sports, you could turn that into something really positive. So I think we're uniquely positioned to reach some of the hardest to reach youth, and we're uniquely effective in that. And we're seeing that too. I mean, one of the things we track, we look at high school graduation rates, because a lot of the cities that we're in, it's a big issue. A lot of dropouts, it's lower than 65% sometimes. So only 65% of youth will graduate high school in some of the areas that we're in. But for our youth that we reach at Beat the Streets, we're keeping them engaged. They're going to school, they're focused, they're disciplined. It's over 98% of the 10,000 youth that we reach. So we're seeing those things kind of transcend into life, and that's what it's all about. So I think I share that feeling with you of just, I mean, I love kids to get as many opportunities as you can get. And it might be that it might be piano, it might be anything, right? That gets you passionate, and there's a lot of lessons that come with that. But I just know from what I've seen, and even my time in South America too, when I was with my coach in Peru, I mean, we would be, a lot of times we'd pull kids out of gangs, get in knife fights, and they'd be coming in on the mat, and then that would be the game changer. Their whole trajectory would be altered. So it's tough to reach those kids without a combat sport. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Sensei Dauphin, you had some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you, Ben. I was in Venice Beach once, and I went into a t-shirt shop, and there was a kid there who liked my tattoos and was clearly affiliated with a street gang. He was wearing lots of blue bandanas, and we just started talking. And I was buying t-shirts. I was bringing t-shirts home and talking to him. And he was telling me to be careful. He said, be careful on the strip, because it wasn't a tourist time. It was pretty empty. And I said, oh, well, I'm okay. And he's like, well, why do you think you're? And I said, well, I do martial arts. I can't handle everything, but I'm a person. And then he started talking to me about martial arts.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what has martial arts taught you? What would I learn from martial arts? And I said, brother, it's going to teach you to fail like you've never failed before. It's going to teach you to pick yourself up off of your ass more than you ever did. And then I gave him $50 and I gave him my business card, which had my email address on it. And I said, if you're ever in Canada, you come to my dojo. I'm happy. You can stay here as long as you want. He messaged me a month later and he emailed me and said, I've moved out of Los Angeles. I live in Northern California with my grandmother now. I've left that affiliation. I've joined a martial arts school. I feel like God sent you to me. That's one of my greatest achievements in martial arts. That chance interaction and that happening is one of my greatest achievements in martial arts. I don't know what he's doing now, but
that's powerful.
Something happened. Yeah, something happened.
Yeah. That type of connection, instant connection, it's tough to make in other arenas, and it's something that a lot of the youth that we serve and a lot of youth that we want to reach and we're not reaching yet could relate to. And I mean, that's a perfect story to kind of capture how combat sports are uniquely positioned to have a really positive impact.
Well, I want to share something with you, Ben. There's somebody on the call that's a host that came out of a bad life. Martial arts pulled him out of a really bad life. Since Legacy and I both come from motorcycle culture, and martial arts is one of the things, it pulled him out, and then he pulled me out through it as well. So
yeah. That's awesome. It's the truth. It works. It really does. We got to keep this going.
Yes. Yeah. Again, we're going to move on to our introductions, but for everybody listening, that phrase uniquely qualified, if you're a martial artist, even if you're a white belt, you're on a path that appeals to people who other things don't appeal to. And that's a gift, because they might see a way into something they don't have right now, just because of something you're doing as a white belt. And there's a chance really to spread what we all consider to be a life's purpose of goodness. And I can't overstate that. That's not flowery rhetoric. That's actually true. Ladies and gentlemen, what the fuck? Welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat, second 100 episodes. This is incredible. What a brilliant beginning to this chat. I've been moved. I've gotten goosebumps for so many reasons. But I just want to say again, my name is Sean Benson. I'm here with my teachers and co-hosts, Sensei Suino, Sensei Randy Dauphin, Hanshi Gary Legacy. And, we've really shortened up our intros of each other. But last week in the host chat, I introduced Sensei Dauphin. I generally introduced Sensei Suino. I just want to say very quickly about Hanshi Legacy. A couple months ago, I went to train with him and I wanted him to help me with some of my kata. And I just want to stress, I've never once trained with him where he's not in a gi training beside me. And when I went with a couple belts who couldn't make a grading, he graded them and then brought out his gi and goes, you took the drive down here. You probably want to learn something. So let's train. And I just want to stress that everyone on this call, nobody sits back and watches and goes, try it like this. They get up in their gi on the mat, and that starts with Hanshi Legacy and goes, let me show you how we're going to do it, and let's do it together. And lastly, he did a little bunkai on me. And I swear to God, I thought both my arms got broken, and it was just this. And I just want to stress that I'm so lucky to have teachers and teachers and people who they don't talk about it. They put on their gi and they go, here's how it goes. Anyways, I just want to say thanks for that, Hanshi Legacy, and for creating that example for all of us. Sensei Dauphin.
Good comments, Sean. I like that. I got goosebumps listening to that. I agree with all of that. So I get to introduce Ben tonight. Ben's from Smithtown, New York. He attended Smithtown High School. That sounds very like Americana apple pie to me, which I like. After high school, he attended the University of Pennsylvania. He graduated with a degree in history, like me. Got that in common. Love history. His nickname is the Hunter, and he's an American. I love that moniker. He's an American mixed martial artist, and he competes in the heavyweight division. If you can't tell when looking on the screen, he's bigger than us, right? So, just so we're clear about it, right? We've already talked about it. He began his martial arts journey in wrestling. I really like the fact that martial arts includes wrestling now. I think if you went back 50 years ago, people wouldn't say it, but it is. Like, you go back to the Greek Olympics, it's a martial art. It's a military art. People killed each other with wrestling. And then later he transitioned himself to an MMA career. He looks up to somebody that I really look up to a lot. I know Sensei Suino does. I know Sensei Legacy does. I know Benson's mentioned his name a number of times. He's got a great first name. You look up to Randy Couture, right? And yeah, great wrestler, great martial artist. All of us are big fans of his as well. So Ben's been a professional fighter since 2011, competing in Peru for Inka Fighting Championship. And then also in this minor fighting association called Bellator MMA, fought in that minor association, Bellator. He has a record of 17-3-1, which is a great record. And when he was in Peru, he went undefeated, compiling a record of 14-0-1 while he was fighting there. After graduating from university, he began his career and established leading social impact organizations in South America. Today, Ben, as we've been talking about, he's the executive director of Beat the Street National. And you've just heard what it's all about through wrestling. My own personal thing that I creeped you a little bit today, Ben. I went out there and listened to a couple of your talks. But the one thing that stood out to me is that you're a family man. I looked at your Instagram profile. You have a beautiful wife, you have beautiful kids, and you look totally joyful when you're with them in the pictures. Nothing make-believe on your Instagram account. Nothing like that's, trying to present your best self. I liked when I looked at your Instagram account, it just looked like a guy who's living his best life with his family, who loves the things he's doing and the life that he's living. So, keep that up. I know you said you don't like to be a social network guy, but the social network needs more of that honesty. And thanks for bringing that. That's my introduction, Sean, for Ben.
Thanks so much, Sensei. So to everybody watching, we're so glad you're here. And if you're watching, on YouTube, either in real time or later, we really hope you hit that subscribe and like button, share with your friends. That really helps us out and it grows this community. And then that helps you out because we just bam, 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 and keep these 100 ep arcs coming. till we hit 1,000 and then 10,000. And then also, if you're listening to those podcasts, I hope you're enjoying your drive or whatever you're baking. But if you're here on Zoom tonight in real time, we have the chat button at the bottom, the one we've been dropping the beatthestreets.org link to. And we want you to ask your questions for us so that you get to be a part of this living history that we call Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. So back to you, Ben. You know, this question we like to get into with everybody. What was it like for you growing up, and what brought you into your first martial arts club?
Yeah, well, I want to thank Sensei Dolphin for the great intro. Appreciate that. My family is biggest blessing in the world, and we got having thriving children and wonderful marriage. It's just and a fulfilling career. It's really very, very grateful. Very grateful. Can't get any better than that. And also wanted to thank someone on the chat, Nicholas, donated to Beat the Street. So thank you so much for the support. That is awesome.
Well, I figured as martial arts teachers, we're the role models. We have to set the pace. So while we were chatting early, I went on Beat the Streets, hit the donate button, donated $250. So all right,
Wow.
listeners, get your act together. I set the standard. See if you can follow.
Thank you, Sensei Suino. That is really generous of you.
My pleasure.
Now I got to go donate $251. Like, Jesus.
I like this competition that's building. This is great. Yeah. So how I first got involved, I was my dad, his whole trajectory was changed through the sport of wrestling. That's what got him into college, and he was the first one in his family to do that, and he credits his coach, and he credits his high school coach and the sport for opening up those doors. And then my older brother also wrestled, and I remember just watching him. He had a highlight video when he was in high school with like the "We Will Rock You." So no, it was Another One Bites the Dust, and just tossing people. And I always looked up to him, and he was my hero. So I got to see him compete when I was younger. So I grew up with that, and wanted to get involved myself, and I had I thought, because this was a little when I first competed, it was just in I practiced a bit and did a couple camps younger, but when I was in 7th grade, I had my first middle school match, and I was a meatball. I was like about as wide as I was tall, and not athletic, and I got pinned my first match, and it was really upsetting and surprising, because for some reason I thought that because my dad and brother were good, that I'd be good. I thought that it would just kind of happen, I didn't see all the work that was happening behind the scenes to achieve that level. So that was a little bit of a reality check, but then yeah, I committed to it and started getting better, so that was my journey in wrestling, and thinking, it also really helped me. And when we think about just the work we're doing, and I think a lot of us have these transformational experiences through journey in martial arts and combat sports, and it's just my journey with wrestling. I mean, it was when I really got serious about it, that was a tough time for my family. It was a couple years after I lost a brother, and it kind of tore our family apart, and I was personally going down a bad path. I was just kind of stopped caring, and I was doing really dumb stuff as a 11-year-old, skipping school and starting to get involved with some drugs and all sorts of just dumb stuff that could have taken me on a whole different path. And it was it was getting involved in the sport, and then my older brother coming back for a summer from college, and we just went to the gym every day, and that kind of helped me get focused. And then from there, I started taking steps towards climbing that mountain, and just getting more focused in school, getting more focused in the sport, got better every day, put the work in, and eventually that turned into the opportunity to wrestle at a really great school at the University of Pennsylvania, and led to my whole MMA career and building the base for that, and to the work that I do today with Beat the Streets. So that's just really grateful that it all came together. You never know. We never know how it could turn out. Could have been a lot different.
Love that. And that makes a lot of sense why you work the way you work with the kids. Like, you could have gone one way, you didn't. So before we get into your MMA, which I know we're all really interested in talking about that journey and how you go from being a college wrestler to that, I actually want to back up a little, because we always talk about how intense and how much the wrestlers train, but talk to us about being, let's say, an elite high school wrestler, what that schedule, how many matches you're having, what that weight cut, what those weights, what those training sessions are like a little, so that we actually get a little like specific idea of how much volume there really is there.
Yeah, that'll take me back. Well, I'd wake up at 5 every morning and go for, that would be my own workouts. I'd wake up at 5 every morning. I would do stuff like, I would do, the important thing was to get the work in, but I would do all sorts of stuff. I'd push my dad's car around. I'd run with the water jugs. I'd do all sorts of stuff. I'd watch Rock. I was drinking raw eggs. I'd do all the stuff out of the Rocky movies. I tried to do all that. But just getting up early and kind of getting some hard work in and getting the lungs open and getting your muscles going. That was part of my routine always. And then we get to practice in the evening after school, and wrestling practices are tough. It's a grind. It's physical. You're sweating a lot. You could sweat out, as a bigger guy, you could sweat out 8-10 pounds in a practice. You could definitely sweat out 8 pounds in a hard practice. Easy. The weight cut, my weight cutting stories really came after as a professional MMA fighter, because I got some fights where I cut down to 185. I wrestled in college at heavyweight, and I had a lot of room to grow at heavyweight. And I wrestled in high school at, my last 2 years were at 215, and kind of moved that. So I didn't have, my freshman year, I did some weight cutting, but it was really my warrior weight cut stories came afterwards in MMA.
And then let's say in high school, like how many matches are you doing throughout the year for the competing?
Usually a duel. So you got maybe about 30 or so matches in about 3 months. And it could be a Wednesday, like a weekday dual meet where you're getting one match, and then a weekend tournament where you're getting 3 or 4 matches in a day. And that's kind of the pace, and then as you then towards the end of the season, it depends, you go farther as you qualify for more things and all of that. But it's you're competing a lot, you're putting your body through a lot of work. You embrace you embrace that, you embrace the toughness. You know what I heard recently, as far as an interesting stat, the one of the most I think it might be the most best indicator as far as who makes it through special forces training. It's if you were a college wrestler.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard that, Ben, that U.S. Special Forces pay attention to how many varsity athletes there are. And because that's on the decline, they know that Special Forces is going to be on the decline, because there's not enough varsity athletes in high school now.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I heard that was the number one indicator as far as if you're going to do well. It's a college wrestler. So if you kind of made it to that next level, you would have gone, what it feels like to be hungry, what it feels like to be tired, what it feels like to push your body beyond its limits, all of that. So that's another thing that the sports teach you. You stretch what you think you're actually capable of.
Right.
Because you go past those moments where the average person gives up, the above average person gives up, and you go past that. So you build this deposits in a mental toughness bank. Every time you do something that you didn't think you were capable of doing, but you push through and you achieve that, that's a deposit. And you know that when when things get tough, when life gets tough, you have that. You're building up like this. You know, when you do those things through and the sport allows a lot of opportunity to do that. You're building up this deposit for when things get tough that you know you got it in you. You got it in you to get through it. And that's it's interesting. And then also Sensei Dauphin, I wanted to say too, when you're thinking about history and the history of wrestling, it is the only sport depicted in cave art. So it might be the world's oldest sport. Yeah.
Interesting story about, there's in one of my books over there, there's a picture of a Greek wrestler standing like this with his arm over his head and his hand over his groin, because when it got to the point where it was a draw, but they were going to go to strikes to decide who was the winner of this, the person said, okay, you hit me. The person hit him wherever. And he said, I want to hit you in the armpit.
Okay.
And he won the fight by hitting him in the armpit. He ended that wrestling match by a strike to the armpit in their fig leaves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got past that. But yeah.
I mean, not much past it. Was
there's still some work to do there. Yeah.
I mean, we're all only on camera from the waist up, right? So
we had some early episodes where we had one of our guests talking about like having to go to Japan to get one piece of knowledge, or moving away from their wife for a year to go get the knowledge. And I just want to throw out, I like to challenge the audience sometimes with concepts. If you're sweating 8 to 10 pounds off at night in practice and still going, but I got to get my own work in, so I got to get up at 5 because that's my work. The other's just practice. And then you're doing 30 matches a year. I'm just challenging anyone listening to go, how often am I competing during a year? How often am I training outside of class? How often am I training outside of class the same day as class? Because I got to get my own work in to match the work that's going to happen and that other people might be doing. And I'm not saying you have to do it if you're listening, but I'm saying don't be shocked when you're not at the level that Ben's at if you're not doing it. And don't be surprised, no matter what martial art you do, when someone doing that amount of work in their martial art surprises you.
Those 30 matches are really, that's wrestling, that's prime wrestling season. But then now, you really want to get to the next level, you're wrestling in the off season too, and there's more competitions in the spring or even a few in the summer, and you're going to off season tournaments, and you have the level is getting, over the past 10 years or so, they're getting better and better at a younger age. There used to be used to be you get, because you're kind of, before the internet and before, I think the two reasons, you have the internet and you have where you could see technique from anywhere in the world. You could see, so you can get that technique, you can see matches from anywhere in the world. And then you have the regional training centers where you have Olympic level athletes that will often do developmental practices. So high school athletes can come in and work with athletes at the next level. But we're seeing they're getting better and better at younger ages. It used to be kind of like, be the top in your high school and then college. And then after maybe you're a really high level, you have a great collegiate career, then that's when you're thinking about the Olympic ladder. But now it's you got people that are doing it just earlier, breaking those barriers that used to exist.
I was actually talking to my BJJ coach about that today, and he was saying the era of the 30-year-old plus BJJ world champ is basically closing. It's like 19 and 20-year-olds now. And it's because the tactic and the speed and the almost like video game quickness of getting grips. That sort of determines the outcome out the gate. And it was interesting. He said, no gi, it's stretching older, but that gi game is so like high school quick mind. So even if you don't have the skill level of the later, you've got the dynamic ability to engage whatever you're trying to do. And then the fight's over.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild.
It's wild.
It's evolving.
So we want to get your
Evolving.
MMA path, but we've got actually Sensei Suino's going to tee up a question from one of our viewers, and maybe even two in a row, actually.
Well, let's start with one. So this is from my student ZT, who started out as a judo student, but she's in jujitsu, and I'm trying to lure her into karate as well.
ZT, join karate. Get into karate, girl.
ZT, and I'll run this around the horn, but Ben, let's start with you. She says, how do you balance promoting the discipline and rules necessary in the dojo or in the gym, but still make it comfortable and fun and for kids so they keep coming?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, when you're starting out, my son's 7 right now, and the only thing I try to focus on is, you know, can you learn something? Did you learn one thing? And did you have fun? Because you got to kind of spark a bit of, you know, you got to spark a passion and love for it, so that when things get a little bit serious and you're really, when you know you want to do this, then you've already have that love and passion for the sport built up ahead of time. So it doesn't feel like it's you know, you can get it wrong, that balance, because by pushing kids too early, too young, too early is usually where people will get it wrong, where there's all the pressure of competing, and if you're having bad culture of just kind of, you know, getting, yeah, you know what will ruin that, where that often happens too, if you kind of have you know, maybe it's it could be a parent or a coach, but someone that's maybe kind of didn't quite achieve what they wanted to achieve, and are trying to live through their kids, and are getting too intense about it, and you gotta let them grow in their own journey. And I think it's better to first get that enjoyment and passion for the technique, for the sport, and then you start piling on. You know, the 5 a.m. runs happen when you're getting a little, you know, when you're getting more serious, when you're setting those goals for yourself, when you're saying, I want to be, you know, I want to thrive at this, I want to excel at this. So how? Okay, well, you got to put in the extra work. So I think it's a timing thing, and you got to do that. You push harder when the person's ready.
Love it. Well, let's hear from some of the other folks. Hachi Legacy, what do you think? How do you balance the discipline and rules necessary in the dojo and still make it fun for kids so they don't quit?
Well, make it, everybody's using the right word, in my opinion, is that let it be fun at first. And then when they achieve something that is small, praise them for it. And then start making that praise just slightly harder to gain from the sensei. And then that way they try harder to please you, and they become better themselves. I think that's, in my opinion, that would be the main thing, though, getting into too many small details.
Randy, do you have something to add on this?
I do, Sensei. You know, it's funny. I was just talking to Kiyoshi Rice, and we were talking about how when I started teaching, I loved teaching kids. And then there was, when I was really competitive, I didn't like it. But now that I'm past all that, I really love teaching kids again. Like, I love when the kids come in here. It's so much fun. I love their honesty. And I love their genuality. But I always try and tell them that it's okay to make mistakes. You can make mistakes. You come in here. This is a place that you should make mistakes, but it's not okay to keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, because then there'll be consequences for making the mistake. And I think if you're clear up front and they understand, little kids and younger people don't want surprises, right? So if you articulate it and you explain it to them, then I think they'll accept it. I think it's also good to make sure that the kids know it's the same for everyone. Nobody's being centered out or treated poorly. Like, if 10 out of 10 kids make a mistake, like they don't put their shoes in the right spot when they come in, 10 out of 10 kids are going to get corrected on putting their shoes in the right spot. So then there's no favoritism. And then I think Sensei Legacy said it before as well. You got to model the behavior. You can't tell them, you got to line your shoes up, but they come in and your shoes are laying there like in a heap when they come walking in the door, then they're going to know. And so I think that's how you're strict. You model the behavior. You allow them to make mistakes. You don't allow them to keep making the same mistakes. And then I think in the end, you just hug them and yeah, make a personal connection with them and get them to trust you. Yeah.
John, anything you want to add on this topic?
Not much. I don't want to spend time on it. I don't have a kids program and I haven't taught a lot of kids, but I will say one of the best teaching tools in general I've found is just going, when someone does something amazing or really good, and just being like, that was like Hanshi said, like praise, praise, praise. That was fucking incredible. But then I add, that's your new baseline now. So my job was to get you there. Now it's on you to keep you there. And if you fall below it, we know that's on you. And that tends to work pretty well because it's like, right, I can do this. And now we expect you to do it. And then that just becomes a platform. And then the next time something's amazing, we're like, fuck yeah, that's your new baseline now. And it gets an exciting thing like, wow, I'm upping my baseline. But that is more for my work has been a little more with people 18 and up. But I like that tool a lot. It works for me as a student.
I got another advice from a wrestling dad, Mike Amin. His son's an Olympic bronze medalist. And I asked him how I asked him this question. And he said, take him for ice cream after practice. Is what he said. He said, when they're little, just go for ice cream after practice. And then it starts, and you start extending it through a match and you start kind of, build that positive association with something, build that, know that, okay, you build that kind of, and then, but yeah, that was his advice. I thought it was pretty cool. I'm using it. Using it because my kids are little, so I'm trying to figure this out for my own kids. It's different,
Right.
than, being the right balance between dad and coach and all, so yeah, trying to figure it out.
We got twin boys in our judo program, and their thing was Steak and Shake. So when they started 4 years ago, their mother took them to Steak and Shake after every practice, and they're still training. So
something
seems
to
to work. Seems to work. I will say this. It's I think a little different as a parent than a teacher, but as a teacher, when I teach kids martial arts, I've learned that the kids are not afraid of being disciplined. They're not afraid of having high standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it's delivered. One of my judo longtime judo and Iaido and karate and jiu-jitsu students on the call, Dan Holland, he's great. He says, you can punch kids right in the face. You just have to smile right afterwards. How you deliver it is everything, right? How you deliver the discipline is everything.
He learned that because he saw me punch a kid in the face here and get a bloody lip.
I think he's been doing that a long time, but you guys are of like mind on that. And then a question came in from Paul Dunlap. A question just for you, Ben. Have you worked with young people who aren't naturally inclined toward fighting? And if so, right, how did you help them make the transition into becoming wrestlers or martial artists?
Yeah, we're very open because we have the way that our programs are set up is we look at where areas of need are. So we'll look at kind of poverty rates in a city, and then what's going on in the schools, what's going on in the community centers, are there programs? We'll partner with the school district, or we'll run a program out of a Boys and Girls Club or a rec center, and then it's open to everyone in that community. And there's plenty of youth that come through Beat the Streets that are just like, hey, we want to, that my friends are here. I got a safe place to go and a positive experience, positive people around, and that's great. That's enough. Our goal isn't to build super high level wrestlers and champions. It happens. It does happen. But our goal is to use the sport as a vehicle and to help our youth go and set their goals and achieve them, work towards a positive path in life. So we do have plenty of youth that are from all backgrounds and kind of different levels of commitment to the sport, and we want to make it a place that's just kind of welcoming and has growth opportunities and opportunities to go there's lots of opportunities for youth that are all in to go further, but there's also opportunities for youth that are just, hey, I just want to, this is a great place to be. And I feel that there's positive people around us, and I have some friends in the program. So I want to do this. So that's okay too.
Well, we love that, but I'm gonna go in a little different direction here, everybody. I think you know where I'm going with this. As I pull up on my phone, a little something known as the 10 questions. Ben, the 10 questions, what we ask around 9:30 from all our guests, and we ask that you answer as impulsively as you can. But then, if you want to flesh out your answer, feel free. You ready for your 10 questions? You ready?
I'll give it a shot.
What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
I get a lot of submissions with a modified Darce from a front headlock position. That's kind of, it goes right to the wrestling base, but I have a little bit of a tweak to it that works pretty well when I get people there. So
Darce is a tricky bitch. Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
My brother was the biggest influence. My brother and dad are kind of tied for it, but I think because I saw my brother competing so much that really drew, especially younger, and that was a big driver for me, seeing him and looking up to him and modeling him.
Who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
I guess, that's a tough question. My instinct is probably Bruce Lee, that he was the father of MMA in some ways, right? Where he was just such a student of so many disciplines, and started putting, he wanted to learn it all and put it all together. So when I'm in the cage, or when I was competing, and the most successful MMA fighters, it's not that it's, you master some areas, right? But you have to be aware of everything, and you got to kind of make techniques flow from different disciplines, flow into one another. Like for me, it'd be like, I want my jab step to look like I'm going to take a takedown too. Like I want my footwork with my wrestling footwork to look like my striking footwork, in a way where it's kind of confusing and you don't know what's going to happen. And you want techniques from different disciplines to kind of flow from each other. So that I think he brought that together.
I thought you were going to say Dan Gable. Come on, the Gable grip. Come on.
I should have. Yeah. I know. Probably people are gonna be mad at me for that. I am a big fan of mixed martial arts, though. I like, because it is the most complete, and you really got to test yourself in there. I do view that as the ultimate test, but I view wrestling as the best base for it. It's a really good base for it. I'm sure you guys would have different opinions there, but that's me with my background. I love how mixed martial arts is so complete, and you have to figure out so many different disciplines and then piece it together. And then I love the base that wrestling gave me, to be able to figure out where the fight goes.
Ben, my most favorite MMA athlete of all time started in karate. It is probably one of the best wrestlers in the UFC ever, which is George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You're right. He is. Yeah.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your martial arts training?
Well, now I'm at a different stage where I'm, my full-time, my goals are around being the best father I could be, grow and beat the streets, being the best husband I could be. So it's a different chapter of life for me now, where I don't know if I'll be competing. Sometimes I get the itch. I definitely am past the chapter where I could be getting in the cage again, because you got to be all in. You got to be training 3-4 times a day, and so you have to have the time to prioritize that as number one. So I'm past that chapter of life, but now I roll for health, to feel good, and to continue to learn, because I still have so much to learn. So those are more of my motivations now. But every once in a while I get an itch to compete. So I don't know, maybe you'll see me in some grappling tournaments or things like that, just to have a date to work towards and kind of pick up the intensity a little bit.
Sweet. We'll get in touch after this and you'll have to ping us and let us know, like, because I'd like to watch those if they're streamed in any way. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
That you did good, that you live the purpose. I believe that God's purpose for all of us on earth, that our legacy is the impact that we have on those around us in our inner circle, but also the society and the world. So the impact that we leave, that's what we take when we leave this earth. So I strive to live a purposeful life in that way, and I'm hoping, and I pray a lot for God to guide my decisions as a leader and in my family and all of the so I hope when that day comes that that worked, that I did go down the path that He intended for me and with my life.
Do you have a favorite film and television martial artist?
Favorite film or favorite? Oh, just
favorite film and television martial artist. And they might not even be a real martial artist.
Just favorite fight scenes or so. And
yeah.
I mean, I got a favorite movie. I'm trying to think of I got a quick answer for my favorite movie is Gladiator.
Nice.
Yeah.
We haven't had that one come up yet, I don't think.
That's definitely my favorite movie.
That's some martial arts for sure.
Yeah, okay, that count. That's a good answer then, because Gladiator's my favorite movie.
It's all good answers because they're yours, but that's epic.
Yeah.
Do you have a martial artist, living or dead, in all of recorded history that you'd like to train with the most?
Well, I think I already had that. I was John Jones' sparring partner for years, and I would do training camps. And when I was competing in Bellator, I would go from Peru to Albuquerque and do a couple months at the Jackson Wings training camp, and doing rounds with John is like it's really an awesome experience. It's like an educational workshop. It's really intense, but he's also very controlled, and that's the kind of person you want to like, being able to have that experience where you get to test yourself against the best out there. So I think I've actually got to live that. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And, I actually would love if any of my students are watching this now or later, talk about controlled intensity. I know we're still in your 10 questions, but it's such a key idea that he can be intense to the point where you're getting all out of it, but it's controlled.
Yeah. It's gonna be, you got to be ready to show up when you're doing a round with John, but at the same time, he has enough control he values his sparring partners. He's taking care of his sparring partners. There are definitely times where I could have been opened up with an elbow or a knee or something, and he had the control not to, and sometimes early fighters don't have that. That's usually when most of the injuries come, or sometimes you get some egos where you're trying to prove yourself in the gym versus but more seasoned fighters typically learn that control and also learn to just appreciate the fact that, hey, this is how we're making a living, so let's not injure each other.
Right.
You gotta save that for the fight. So there's a little more of look after each other. You want to have, it's got to be intense because you got to push each other to get better. But you also when to pull back on an opening or just kind of so right. John's great at that. I mean, he's maybe his fight IQ is just through the roof. So he kind of he controls the tempo there and is really great at that. Where it's just it's an honor to have been able to get that many rounds in them.
We love to hear that. Let's get back to 10 questions. If everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit you've gotten from martial arts, whether they train or not, what benefit would they be getting?
benefit from training in martial arts is an understanding. You're going to know yourself better. You're going to know your own limits. You're going to grow closer to the people around you, and you're going to be able to do things that you're going to learn that you're able to do things that you didn't think were possible before.
Our last two questions come as a pair. What is your greatest achievement and what is your greatest regret?
Greatest achievement. It's just I feel like this is kind of a broad answer, but the life that I feel like I'm living the life I'm supposed to be living, a purposeful life, being a father to my two children that are just thriving, and our family is it's really just we're an awesome team. My wife and I are an awesome team. Having a fulfilling career with Beat the Streets, where we're now I'm in a position to help grow this movement that's changing lives every day, and we can keep growing this and strengthening and scaling, and being in the position to be able to influence that and be a part of that, and it's just, I guess that's not really answering your question, but I don't know. I feel like all that together feels like I feel purpose, and like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and where I'm supposed to be at this point in life.
Greatest regret?
Let's see here. I feel like I need a second on this one. Greatest regret.
This is where we play the Jeopardy music for you.
Yeah, I know. I know. The time
that makes it
time
easier
is
to
going.
think.
Yeah. There's so many things that when you have a mentality of when you grow from your mistakes, there's things that I would have changed in that moment. There's challenges to overcome. There were things that I could have done better in life. There were, but I can't go back and I can't find something that I am just that I'm still thinking about, like I'm completely regret and torn up about. I can kind of see I made plenty of mistakes in my life, but I feel like there's nothing that's standing out to me that didn't turn into a lesson, that didn't turn out into a growth opportunity. There's hardships that turned out into an opportunity to help others through it. And so it's kind of, I don't know if I'm having a tough time answering that one.
That's not an uncommon answer at all. There's a lot of guys who are just like, I don't really have any. I mean, at the time, maybe, but it's nice to hear. Sensei Dofa, I know you got a question for us. Going back to one of his answers.
I want to talk about John Jones a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I recently was listening to a podcast with Daniel Cormier, who obviously those two, right? Like they have that.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, Daniel Cormier was like very like John Jones is the best martial artist. Like he wasn't like tearing him down in any way. My question for you is about something that DC said, which was, he said, John Jones was like an okay puncher. Like, he could hurt you with his punches and stuff, but he said kicking, you never want to get kicked by that human being, like ever. He said, like, the first time he kicked me was the last time I ever wanted him to kick me. I just wonder what your comments about DC and that thing, as a person who stood in there with him too.
Yeah. Well, DC is an amazing human being, and a shout out to him because he's supported Beat the Streets plenty of times over the years, and it's been a great ambassador for the sport, ambassador for the mission, and just really overall awesome human being. And then to that comment, John's kicks are brutal. John's kicks are brutal, and I haven't had to experience it like the way that some, it's different when you're competition is different than sparring too. We've had heated rounds and the intensity's up, but when you're really looking to finish a fight, there's levels. So I want to recognize that too. Like I don't want to act like I've experienced the full full force or the full kind of, you know, I can't compare my experience to somebody that's definitely not to DC or somebody that's like that's when it's the real deal, it's different. But and those guys are just at such an amazing level. But yeah, I mean, yeah, his kicks are brutal. The biggest thing that stood out to me is his fight IQ, where he just knows where to, and I even there were times where he's helped me with some video study or things, and you see how he thinks about it, and he breaks down patterns really well. He's a really cerebral fighter, which you know, I don't know if everybody realizes that or not, but he breaks down patterns. He knows when you're about to he's figured out what your tells are when you're about to go and make your attack and go towards your strengths, and then he does little things to shut it down and mess with your train of thought. So you might be thinking, I'm going to do this to this to this, and he does something to shut it down. That front kick that he does, it just like is just something to shut down. Like I'm about to do something, and then it's shutting down your train of thought and your series of attacks. So he's really good at that. And then he's good at, and then he would always look at older footage too of some of your early fights with his opponents, because he would say that when you put the pressure on and when you're in that you start reverting back to some of your older mistakes or from your mistakes that you had when you're coming up. So he'd look for those openings and he looked for weeks. So he's just very his fight IQ is really beyond anyone that I've ever kind of had that, you know, the most that I've ever seen anyway. So yeah, that's something that always stood out to me as really special about John that you might not realize without seeing how studious he is of the sport, of his opponents, patterns, breaking down patterns, shutting down strengths, moving the fight into the direction that he wants it to move, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But of course, all of his weapons are dangerous. You know, his kicks are definitely dangerous. The elbows are dangerous. All of it is dangerous. Yeah.
Let's get to your fight career. So you're a wrestler, you're rocking the game. What makes you go, all right, MMA time? And what did you need to learn? And how did that go to get there?
Yeah, you know what? I was a fan of the sport, and I loved the saw it as the ultimate challenge, like the ultimate athletic challenge. I think I believe MMA is kind of that. Like you have to be so knowledgeable. You have to have the mindset for it. You have to have the technique, the strategy, the conditioning, the physicality. It's got to all come together into this. It's just a really very complete sport and big challenge. So when we're thinking about some of the things you learn that I learned in wrestling and that we all learned through a journey in martial arts, and some of when you learn more about yourself, when you face big challenges and you overcome and you do that, and you realize, and you learn more about yourself. You build into you make deposits in that mental toughness bank. You kind of, you all of that's what drew me to it, is the challenge, because I like feeling like you could do something that very few people could do. So that's kind of the feeling that drew me to it, and then yeah, I started training also just to learn and for fun, and then I started getting kind of good, and it was time to compete, and then and in my mind, I had thoughts of, okay, I think I could kind of take this far, but I didn't know. I was just putting things together and learning, and then one fight at a time, and and ended up having a pretty good career, and was all in for a while. And I don't think I achieved my full potential in the sport, but I think that that could have been, for some people, that might have been seen as a regret. Like, I think I could have stayed in it a little bit longer and done it. I was still going into my prime, I think, and I think I could have learned more and done more. But I don't have that as a regret either, because I think that there's just chapters of life, and I was feeling that it was a different chapter of life. And then I started working. Then I moved my family back to the States, and was working full time at Beat the Streets Philadelphia and started on this whole trajectory to where I am now at Beat the Streets. So I don't have a regret with that. I do have a feeling that, you know, maybe I could have done more in the sport, but I think that's okay too, because you don't really know, you know, maybe that's not how it would have turned out. Maybe it would have turned out in another direction. Maybe some more injuries that are a little more permanent, or, you know, who knows. So I think it all happens for a reason, but I'm grateful for my career and the experience that I had with it, and the places that I've been, and the people I've met, and the lessons I've learned through my MMA journey, and the feeling of being able to do something that very few people could do is something that kind of sticks with you and helps me through life.
So I kind of want to ask you 3 specific questions about that journey. So as you were looking at that and going, this is something I could do, what was the toughest skill to gain? And then talk to us about the Inka Fight League and Bellator. I mean, I know Bellator compared to UFC just has a pretty glowing reputation for how they treat their fighters, but talk about whatever those aspects you want in terms of those organizations and any highlights from each organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I went to Peru, I wasn't going there. I was already doing some MMA training before that, just kind of getting to know. I did a little bit of boxing, a little bit of Muay Thai, a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and then I got to Arequipa, Peru. I was there. I was going to be there for a year. I went there to help set up I was doing social impact where I was helping set up a community center and set up after school programs. It was going to be a year-long project. I met my wife, ended up staying there for about 8 years. Both my kids were born there. During that time, I found a local Muay Thai gym. I started teaching some grappling classes there. I was training, and then I was getting a little more comfortable with striking over that time, and that was, you know, it's just different. It's just things, you know, things just take time to get comfortable. I mean, I guess because one of your questions was kind of how what was tough to adapt to or to learn.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say I got you don't have to master it all so much in MMA. You have to kind of know how to move the fight into your strengths, and you need to learn how to make things flow together, and you need to be aware of a lot of different attacks from various disciplines, and you need to know how to shut that down. But your own attacks, you can kind of you could learn how to move the fight into your strength. So I mean, it took time to get comfortable. You know, it's just any form of, you know, boxing and Muay Thai is very different from wrestling. So there's some fundamental, just kind of even, you know, stance and body and just your the tightness and explosiveness, and like there's different things that, you know, wrestlers are kind of, it's you got to learn to relax a little bit more, to let your punches go. You got to learn how all these things that are a little bit it just takes time, a little bit different, but it was fun, a lot of fun to learn new skills. It still is a lot of fun to learn new skills. And then then I started competing with Inka. So my coach, who turned into my coach in Peru, was running Inka. And I had a couple amateur fights that aren't on, I have a couple fights that aren't recorded too on SureDog or online. But then my first professional fight with Inka, I was kind of like set up as the bad guy, the foreign, they had the champion there, and I was the American foreigner, and this, but then I kind of won everyone over a little bit, and then the whole country was kind of with me after that, which was cool. But that was my first fight. It turned into a bare knuckle fight. This guy Sopalote, it was on the spot decision. It was a little chaos. It was like I was just going with it, but my Spanish wasn't that great at that time. I was getting there, like I was fine in a slow conversation, but then we're on national TV, and it was for a title, and it was on national TV, and this guy and my opponents talk about how he's going to destroy me and all this stuff, and I'm like, my default when I didn't understand something, was like, oh yeah, see, and I'm just like agreeing to this stuff. So I embarrassed myself a little bit. But yeah, then during the press conference, my opponent was like, okay, I want to make this a bare knuckle fight like it used to be and feel your blood on my fists and all this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, all right, let's do that.
See?
And it turned into a bare knuckle fight. I ended up winning the fight. Some of those events, some of the early events were in they're in a cockfighting pit. It was a pit.
Don't tell John McCain.
I know, right? Yeah, it was actually that was happening on, like, it was, that there'd be people there on a Saturday and roosters there on a Wednesday. Yeah, it was in that. There was like, the empty cages and the warm-up area and all that. So I kind of got some cool experience, kind of like old school experiences that I wouldn't have gotten if I had my first career, if I started my career in the States. I wouldn't have gotten some of those kind of old school experiences that fighters maybe 10 years older than me got when it was first coming up in the States. I was in it was like a tournament style or in multiple fights in a night. I had that's
hell yeah.
Yeah, I had the bare knuckle fight, had some, all those were kind of some cool warrior experiences, like now I'm just happy for all that. It was cool. Then I ended up winning the title there in Inka FC. I defended it a bunch of times against one of my early fights was to defend that was against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu national champ. A lot of grapplers like that, a lot of Brazilian guys coming in with a lot of guys coming in with a Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu background.
Sure.
And my style matched up pretty well for that. I was good at getting the takedowns and good at finishing fights with good ground and pound and shutting down submissions, like getting hand control, shut down submissions, drop an elbow, that kind of game plan, and then if submissions opened up, take them. And I'd hit, I'm not the best striker, but I kind of, I could hit hard and level change and make it feel like you're going to get taken down, but then come back up with hands. So that will, when you're if you can get in the first couple minutes, I always was thinking if I could in the first few minutes, if I could land a combination when my opponent thinks that I'm going for a takedown, and then land a takedown when my opponent thinks I'm going for what I'm trying to strike, then I can kind of dictate the pace. So then it's now you get guys reacting to things, and every time you're moving, they're reacting, and you can kind of dictate the pace, and then it's a lot. That was always kind of like a first round win for me. If I can do those two things, then I feel like, okay, I could kind of keep my opponent on their toes and reacting to what I'm doing, versus it's a lot more tiring when you're reacting to what your opponent's doing. So being able to dictate the pace of the fight, I think about that and try to get that first round win of just getting my opponent reacting to my attacks. Then I'll pause there. I think then Bellator. We want to talk about Bellator.
Yeah, talk to us about Bellator, standout stuff there, and how was that for you? And is it as good an organization as we kind of hear?
Oh yeah, I love it. The great people over at Bellator. A lot of people I still keep in touch with. Rich Chow, he was the VP at Bellator at that time. He went from like matchmaker to vice president. I still keep in touch with him a decent amount. It was a great organization, great culture, and overall awesome experience. Just being able to fight in that promotion, that league, and have those. It was awesome. It was really awesome. Yeah.
You know what sucks?
Mm-hmm.
Time.
Oh yeah.
We're fucking chatting away here, and Sensei Dauphin just messaged me. He goes, I hate to tell you, but like, it's time. And I'm so sorry that that's true. And the way we wind up our episodes is we go what we call round the horn. So we talk about our time with you, and then we want to hear what your last words are before we do a little bit of housekeeping.
Sounds good.
So Hanchi Legacy, what do you want to say about our time with Ben tonight?
Oh, this is the type of guy we like to spend our time with. Because he's doing something very worthwhile. And that in itself is, if you can make those children or those younger persons believe that they are doing something worthwhile, that's a great incentive for them. And I'm behind you on this as far as I can be. It's a great thing to do, and we're really happy that we had you on our program, and hopefully this program will help you catapult that ahead somehow. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Hanchi Legacy. It's an honor. Absolutely.
Sensei Suino?
Yeah, man. Awesome conversation, Ben. Maybe we'll get back to this at some point if we do another conversation. I love all the stuff around the transition of being a young person who maybe isn't that focused, isn't that disciplined, right? I mean, you talked about a little bit for yourself. Certainly I experienced that. You know, I can't remember the first time I decided to put 6 eggs in a blender and drink them raw. But you know, when you said that, it just took me back to my teenage years when for some reason I thought that'd be a good idea. And I did it for 5 years, you know, following Arnold or, you know, whatever. But just something happens when you're in the combat sports or the martial arts, or something happens. And I'm sure it happens in other sports too, where you just decide, I want to be better than I am. And in order to do that, I got to do these certain things. So that all really resonates with me. And then the other thing I love, and I talk about this arc that we see when we talk about lifetime martial artists on this show, there's always this arc. People come in as a certain kind of person, maybe insecure, maybe unsure of where they want to go. Maybe they're involved in bad stuff. You stay in the martial arts or combat sports game for 30, 40 years, you're giving back. You've become a role model in the community. And you're not only doing that, right? Like, you know, a lot of our guys are still in the dojo doing it. You've stepped up to this other level, helping the community, maybe the country, and maybe the world. I'm just so proud to have had this conversation, and I hope we can do it again.
Thank you.
Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
Ben, man, this has been so enjoyable. Probably like my favorite episode with somebody that I've not met before. Truly, like, I always write down a lot of notes. You said right off the hop, you said you would not be the man I am without martial arts. That martial arts is kind of the thing that helped to make you. You also said, find a mat, you'll find a home. That resonates with me like completely. Like you just, wherever you go, that martial arts community is going to embrace you if you're an honest martial artist. So you find that mat, you find that home wherever you go. I've experienced that across the world. Beat the streets, brother. That's an awesome thing you're doing. And I meant what I said. You know, since Suino already donated 250, I'm going to donate 251. Let's do some stuff together. I know, see, he's irritated, right? You go back and forth, right? But let's find some opportunities. If our platform can help you with that, let's do that. Let's somehow make that work. I like your goal. You're at 10,000. You want to get to 100,000. I want you to get to 1 million. And I know everybody on this call wants to get you to 1 million. Let's get you to 1 million. A caring coach in your corner. Yes, that's a checkbox for me. It's cool. You see somebody who you come from a line of wrestlers, your dad, your brother, like, and it goes to just show that it's not what you say, it's what you do, right? Like, you know, saying something is important, but doing what you say is more important, because that's why you became a wrestler. Get up at 5 a.m., do your own work, then you sweat out 8 pounds in the evening session. That's, we've all done that stuff. I'll be up at 5 a.m. tomorrow to go off to my BJJ class. Deposits in the mental toughness bank. Yeah, that could be a tattoo. That might be my next tattoo. Make more deposits in your mental toughness bank. A year ago, I wouldn't have known what a modified Darce choke is, but now I do. And I know for sure I don't want you to put me in it. Your brother and your dad are the most influential people. That's awesome. Next 5 years, you just want to be the best father you can be and build up, beat the streets, and those are two really audacious, hairy goals but you're going to do it. Who could you train with? You already did. John Jones. I said that too. Not John Jones. I said I trained with Gary Legacy and Nick Swino. I already did. I trained with those people. Greatest benefit, learn about yourself, things you didn't know you could do, right? That's, if the whole world could do that. And then you said about, your greatest achievement was living a purposeful life. Nobody said that yet, but we all live purposeful lives. And I wish everybody could live a purposeful life. And we often, Sean Benson and I will talk about people who say, oh, no regrets. And we'll say, oh, that's bullshit. Everybody's got a regret. But your answer was an outstanding answer, I think, because you said, if you have a growth mindset and you're trying to learn from your mistakes, then you actually don't end up having regrets. And like, so you're the one who just taught me that tonight, like that people could not have regrets. If you have a growth mindset and you're learning from your mistakes, then they're helping you to become a better person. Ben, man, it was so awesome talking to you tonight. I could have just sat here and listened to you talk. You're so passionate and energetic. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on our show. You made us better tonight.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with all of you, and just great conversation. Learned a lot from all of you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I love the way you talked about maybe you had more potential as an MMA fighter, but that, it's not important, because when you pivot to what you're doing, like, I don't know how many fans you would have had and converted into a better life as a fighter. I don't know. It could have been more, but we do know what you're doing with the time you decided to spend not fighting. And that's incredible. Like, it's impossible to overstate that you're doing what we're all talking about and doing, by the way, we're all doing it, but you're just doing it on such a wonderful scale. And we talk episode after episode about how this is just to make people's lives better. And then you're out there offering it to people who might not have found it on their own in the way that we were lucky enough to. Do you have any last words you want to say, or should we say our housekeeping and good evening? Ben, it's your call.
I just love what you all are doing, and really tapping into the soul of martial arts, and hearing different people's journeys through it. I know it already, the work you're doing is inspiring so many, and it's just thank you for the opportunity to be on here and get to know all of you, and yeah, I'm sure that we'll be keeping in touch. Absolutely.
It's a pleasure, and thanks for coming. Before I throw it to Sensei Dauphin for what's up next week, I'm just going to say thanks to Mike Russell, Justin Shea, Andrei Sedashev, Robert Slumsky, Jesse Vital, Alden Adair, Sidney Dauphin, Josh Kitchens, and Cristiano Londolt for their help behind the scenes. We don't have a show without them. Sensei, what's coming up? And say goodnight for us.
Listen, if you have a person like Ben that you want us to talk to, go to punchkickchokechat.com. Go there, suggest that guest. We want to talk to everybody. Well, not everybody. Sorry, there's some people. I'm not going to say their names. But we want to talk to everybody, but we definitely want to talk to people like Ben. So go to punchkickchokechat.com. Give us your suggestions, and if they're good ones, we're going to act upon them for sure. We're stacking up too. We've got shows already now. We're in June. We're all the way into July, and we're booking into August, which is super exciting, because it used to be a time when we were like struggling to find somebody. Next week, Ryan Bodrug, I know him really well, really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. Jamie Mancini, Sensasino, you know him well. You want to say a word about him?
I don't know him well. He's another connection through our friend Mark Shalinsky. But Jamie, I'm looking forward to talking to him, because he's about my size for a change, which doesn't happen very often.
And then we got stuff going on. So we're going to, July 6th, we got Vic Terrio coming on, who is Jean-Yves Terrio's older brother. He's coming on. He's a big kickboxing promoter, big in Canada, good martial artist too. So we're going to be talking to him. Then we're going to get into the spots where we're doing Camp Bushi. We're going to BC, but we got episodes to drop for you that we filmed, and we have them in the can. So one of them is Rick Joslin, and I'll just say confronting death and leaving behind a legacy. So he's We're going to have a show there. Bernard Lidesor, Ben Lidesor's dad is going to come on. We're going to have a chat with him. 30-year police officer. Said to Swino, just watched him use a shock knife to make people realize what a knife will do if you try and fight somebody with a knife. Yeah, we're going to talk to him. And then on July 27th, Sensitive Legacy and I had a private conversation about Sokan Bushi Matsumura, and we're going to drop that one down for people to see. And that's what's coming up, Benson.
That's fantastic. Wow. I'm going to be doing these from Calgary. I'm so excited to be connecting with you from across the continent. And I just want to say thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Ben. What a beautiful night to chat about martial arts. Be safe, everyone, till next week.
So again, if I do a quick shout out, Sensei Sweeney, Sweeney reminded me of a shout out to Mark Schlinsky, who connected me to you guys. And thank you, Mark, for all the support and all you do for the youth of Beat the Streets.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Have a great
Cheers,
night.
everybody.